All right, let's take a trip back in time to 1991. Remember the Cold War, the Soviet Union, that feeling like the world could change in an instant.
It definitely could, and it did. 1991 was a pivotal year, a year when those changes started to happen in a really dramatic way.
And one of the most symbolic moments of that year was the attempted coup in August, an event that really hastened the fall of the Soviet Union.
You're right. That attempted coup is a story full of political intrigue, personal risk, and a whole lot of courage.
And we've got some really interesting source material to help us unpack it all.
We do. We've got an episode of the History Daily podcast, and it dives deep into the events of that August.
So for this deep dive, we'll be unraveling this story together, exploring the context, the key players, and the lasting impact of this pivotal moment.
Sounds like a plan.
Now, to understand the attempted coup, we really need to set the scene. By the mid-1980s, the Soviet Union was facing some serious challenges.
Absolutely. The economy was struggling, the war in Afghanistan was draining resources, and the cracks in the communist system were becoming increasingly visible.
And that's where Mikhail Gorbachev comes in, a relatively young leader who came to power with a vision for reform.
Yeah, he really wanted to shake things up. He introduced policies like glasnost and perestroika, openness and restructuring, with the goal of modernizing the Soviet Union and making it more transparent.
So essentially, he was trying to bring the USSR into the modern world.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. For the first time, Soviet citizens could openly criticize the government.
Wow.
They had access to information that had previously been censored, and they could even enjoy Western entertainment like never before.
American movies, rock music, those things start to infiltrate Soviet culture.
It's true, and that challenged the control that the Communist Party had maintained for decades.
It must have been a really exciting, but also unsettling time.
Oh, definitely. Gorbachev's reforms were like a double-edged sword. They brought about a sense of liberation and hope, but they also unleashed forces that he couldn't control. And that's what makes this period so fascinating.
Because those unintended consequences are what led to the coup, right?
Oh, exactly. While Gorbachev hoped his reforms would revitalize the Soviet Union, they also unintentionally emboldened those who opposed him.
And those were the hardliners within the Communist Party.
Right. They saw Gorbachev as a threat, someone who was weakening the Soviet Union and potentially leading it to collapse.
And the person at the head of this group was
Vladimir Krichkov, the head of the KGB. They believed that Gorbachev's reforms had gone too far.
So they decided to take matters into their own hands.
Exactly. In August 1991, while Gorbachev was on vacation, they placed him under house arrest.
A bold move.
It was a power grab. They called themselves the Gang of Eight, and they sent tanks into Moscow, to try and intimidate people.
That must have been a terrifying sight for the people of Moscow.
It was a clear sign that something was seriously wrong. And to add to the confusion and fear, they did something rather bizarre.
They started broadcasting Swan Lake on state television.
Right. Instead of the usual news programs, they just played ballet.
What was the thinking behind that?
Well, it seems like it was a psychological ploy to sow uncertainty and confusion.
It's creepy, honestly, when you think about it.
Yeah.
They were trying to signal that everything had changed, that they were now in control.
Exactly. It was a chilling tactic.
But they hadn't accounted for the resistance that would emerge, led by Boris Yeltsin.
No, they definitely underestimated Yeltsin. He was the newly elected president of Russia, and he wasn't going to stand by and let this coup happen.
So he challenged the coup leaders.
He absolutely did. He rallied the people of Moscow to his side, and he became a symbol of resistance.
I've seen pictures of Yeltsin standing on top of a tank giving a speech. A powerful image.
That was a defining moment. His courage inspired people.
The people of Moscow poured into the streets, facing down tanks, pleading with soldiers to stand down.
They were incredibly brave. The coup leaders had really miscalculated.
So the coup ultimately failed?
Yeah.
What happened in those final days?
It was a dramatic few days. The coup leaders tried to maintain control, but the momentum had shifted. People were defying them at every turn.
And the world was watching. The stakes were incredibly high.
It was a tense standoff.
And Yeltsin.
He became a beacon of hope, a symbol of the desire for change, for a break from the old Soviet system.
And in the end,
Within just 3 days, the coup collapsed.
a remarkable turn of events.
It was a victory for the people, for democracy, but it also revealed just how fragile the Soviet system had become.
And that's a story we'll continue to unravel after a short break.
It's interesting to think that those few days in August, that attempted coup, They really sent shockwaves throughout the entire Soviet Union and even beyond.
Oh yeah, the whole world was watching, waiting to see what would happen next.
And for those republics that were part of the Soviet Union, the message was clear. Moscow, the center of power, it was weakening, and now was the time to try to break free.
So even though the coup failed, it actually accelerated the Soviet Union's collapse.
Exactly. It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It really is.
The republics were already feeling emboldened, by Gorbachev and his reforms, but the coup just proved to them that the Soviet system, it was vulnerable.
Like a wounded animal.
Yeah, exactly, and they pounced on that weakness.
What do you think Gorbachev was thinking during all of this? I mean, he tried to reform the system, hold the union together, and now it was all falling apart.
Oh, I can't even imagine. He was in such a tough spot, trying to hold this thing together, trying to negotiate, but it was like trying to, fix a sinking ship with duct tape.
The republics were just done.
Yeah, they had had a taste of freedom, and they weren't going back.
The podcast, History Daily, it really highlights how fast everything unraveled after the coup.
It was like a chain reaction.
Oh, yeah.
One republic after another, they started declaring independence. Lithuania was first,
Oh, okay.
then Estonia, Latvia, and then Ukraine said, "We're out too."
And Ukraine was a big one.
Huge. I mean, if Ukraine was leaving, it was pretty much over for the Soviet Union.
Yeah. Do you think Gorbachev could have done anything differently? I mean, at that point, could he have saved the Soviet Union?
It's hard to say. He had the hardliners on one side, wanting to crack down and go back to the old ways, and then the reformers who wanted even more change. It was like he was being pulled in two different directions.
So what happened?
Well, in December of that year, December 25th, 1991, Gorbachev resigned, and the Soviet Union officially dissolved.
The end of an era. It's almost hard to believe. The Cold War, this giant empire that had dominated global politics for decades, it just vanished.
It's true. And 15 new independent states emerged, each one with its own challenges, building a new nation from scratch.
A whole new world.
Yeah.
For people who had lived under Soviet rule their entire lives, it must have been both incredibly exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Absolutely. They had freedom, but they also had to deal with economic uncertainty, political instability. It was a wild ride.
What were some of the most immediate consequences of the Soviet Union's collapse?
Well, the economy was definitely a big one. They had to shift from that centrally planned economy to a market-based system. And that's not an easy thing to do. There was a lot of unemployment and hardship.
What about politically?
Politically, it was a mixed bag. Some countries transitioned to democracy fairly smoothly, while others struggled with corruption, authoritarianism. And then in some places, you had all these ethnic tensions that had been suppressed for years. They started to resurface, and that led to conflicts and violence.
The world was watching all of this unfold.
Yeah, and it was a wake-up call in a lot of ways.
Like we said, the Cold War was over, but now there are all these new challenges to deal with.
It was a new world order, and nobody was really sure what the rules were anymore.
Wow. The attempted coup, it might have only lasted a few days, but it really set off a chain of events that completely changed the course of history.
It shows you how even something that seems like a failure, like this coup, it can still have a massive impact.
Unintended consequences, they can be powerful.
That's for sure. And it makes you wonder, are there things happening today that might seem small now, but that could end up changing the world as we know it?
That's a good question to think about.
It is. And speaking of good questions, you mentioned earlier that the History Daily podcast included some personal stories from people who lived through all of this.
Yeah, those are always powerful to hear. It brings the history to life.
Totally. And it reminds us that these big historical events, they're not just abstract things.
Right.
They impact real people's lives in very real ways.
Like, for example, they interviewed a young soldier who was ordered to guard the parliament building during the coup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he suddenly found himself surrounded by thousands of protesters.
His own people.
Exactly. He had to decide what to do. Follow his orders or listen to his conscience.
I can't imagine the pressure he must have felt. Torn between his duty and his beliefs.
It's a reminder that history is made by individuals.
People who have the courage to stand up for what they believe in, even when it's dangerous.
Their choices shape the course of events.
And we can learn so much from their stories.
It gives us a different perspective on the past, a more human perspective.
And that's what makes history so fascinating.
It's not just about dates and battles and political leaders.
It's about the human experience.
The hopes, the fears, the struggles, the triumphs.
And ultimately, it's a story that we're all a part of.
We're all connected to the past, and we all have a role to play in shaping the future.
That's a powerful thought.
It is. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into the fall of the Soviet Union,
It's been quite a journey.
full of twists and turns, surprises and insights.
And a reminder that history is never truly over.
It continues to shape the world we live in today.
So, to all of you listening out there, thanks for joining us.
We hope you learned something new today. We hope you were inspired, and we hope you'll keep exploring the past.
Because by understanding where we've come from, we can better understand where we're going.
And who knows, maybe we can even learn how to avoid making the same mistakes.
That's the hope, isn't it? To learn from history and create a better future.
Absolutely. And if you're hungry for more deep dives into history, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We'll be back soon with another fascinating journey through time.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions. Those people who stood up to the tanks, they really show you the power of human courage.
Yeah, incredible.
They were risking their lives, their freedom, for a future they weren't even sure would come.
I mean, facing down tanks.
It's hard to even imagine.
And yet they succeeded. The coup collapsed. But like we said, the Soviet Union was already in a really precarious position.
Right. The coup didn't cause the collapse, but
Definitely sped things back.
absolutely, like a crack in a dam, the water was already pushing through, and then boom, the whole thing breaks open.
And those republics that were already pushing for independence?
They saw their chance.
Yeah.
Moscow was weak, and they knew it was time to break free.
What a time to be alive. I mean, can you imagine what Gorbachev must have been feeling during all of this? He'd spent years trying to reform the system, and now it was disintegrating right in front of him,
It had to be devastating for him.
like watching a house of cards collapse.
Yeah, he tried to hold it together, negotiate a new union treaty, but it was too late.
That History Daily podcast episode we talked about, it really captures the drama of those final months.
One thing after another, declarations of independence, it was a whirlwind.
Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia.
And then, of course, Ukraine. That was a turning point, a major blow to any hopes of preserving the Union.
So December 25th, 1991, Gorbachev resigns.
And that's it, the Soviet Union, this global superpower,
Wow.
just like that.
The end of the Cold War, a new era dawning. For the millions of people living in the former Soviet Union, it must have felt like a whole new world.
Absolutely. Freedom, uncertainty, a mix of hope and anxiety all at once.
And the ripple effects, they were felt all over the world.
Oh, for sure. The global balance of power shifted overnight. New alliances formed, old rivalries resurfaced. It was a whole new geopolitical landscape.
And all because of a few days in August.
It really makes you think, about how seemingly small events can trigger these huge changes.
Yeah, it's a reminder that history is full of surprises.
It's not always a straight line. It zigs and zags, and sometimes those unexpected turns can lead to some pretty dramatic outcomes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the fall of the Soviet Union, what are some of the key takeaways? What can we learn from this story?
Well, for one, I think it shows us that even the most powerful empires, they're not invincible. They can be brought down by internal pressures, by the will of the people.
And that change, it can happen quickly, unexpectedly.
Exactly. And it's not always a smooth or predictable process. There can be chaos, there can be setbacks, there can be unintended consequences.
But ultimately, history is shaped by the choices that people make. The brave individuals who stood up for what they believed in, even when it was dangerous. The leaders who tried to navigate those turbulent times, their decisions, their actions, they all contributed to this story.
And their stories continue to resonate today. They remind us of the importance of freedom, of democracy, of standing up for what's right, even when it's hard.
And I think that's a message that's more relevant than ever.
Absolutely. We may not be facing down tanks, but we still have to make choices. We have to decide what kind of world we want to live in and what we're willing to do to create it.
Well said. And for those of you listening, we hope you found this deep dive into the fall of the Soviet Union informative and thought-provoking. It's a complex story, but it's one that's worth remembering.
Because it's a story that teaches us about the power of human resilience, about the fragility of power, and about the ever-changing nature of our world.
And if you're hungry for more explorations of the past, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We've got plenty more deep dives to come.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep questioning the world around you.